Our next speaker is Techlore here? There he is. All right, man. Come on up. So we're continuing along these along the lines of privacy and privacy tech, and what the most usable privacy tech is, and how to opt out of dystopia and into Monerotopia. And Techlore, thank you so much, man. Thank you for coming here today. Greatly appreciate it.
Perfect. All right, hello everyone. My name is Henry, and I own a small little company called Techlore, and we produce privacy content as well as research, and we try to make privacy tools as digestible to people as possible. And we've probably gone through dozens, if not hundreds, of different privacy tools over the years, and today I wanted to comment on these privacy tools and how they tie into Monero and how they tie into privacy as a journey in general. So I did post these slides on our website if you wanted to. So you can visit that link if you want to see the slides. Otherwise, the Telegram group should have the slides as well. So that is an option, but it's darker, so it should be better. So here's a little demo. You want to be private online? Go ahead, obtain your devices, start using cubes, utilize Whonix, use everything inside of cubes with Whonix, install an end-to-end encrypted messenger, add all your friends on these end-to-end encrypted messengers. You have to stop using email because email is inherently insecure and nothing can fix email. You have to self-host everything. You have to only use Tor browser without JavaScript, and this is going to lead to site breakage. And we can go ahead and keep going. The point is, dealing with privacy is a pain in the ass. And there's just no way around that because privacy is such a complex issue to tackle, and we have so many different tools that people have to understand how to use and how they have to be educated on how to use these tools. And the amount of friction required for these users to get and start becoming private is just way too much. And it's the reason we have a job, because we get to educate people, but ideally, we do not have a job. And that's what this presentation is about. So I am a coach on a high school track team, and one day our head coach just rolled in, and he was wearing his Apple Watch, and it kept buzzing. And he was getting mad at us because he was like, hey, why is my watch buzzing all the time? So it turns out his Apple Watch was just sending him text notifications. He just couldn't understand that the text notifications were coming from his phone. And I think it's really, it was eye-opening to me because he's not dumb. He's like most other people. And when we're at these conferences, it's hard to take a step back and remember where we were 5, 10, 15 years ago, some of us even longer, and how the digital efficacy of most people out there is not that strong. A lot of people just use devices as they normally would, and we have to somehow get these people to use privacy tools that require such complex educational resources to use. And so my final point here is the amount of time, energy, and education required to achieve these higher degrees, and sometimes even low degrees of privacy, is just way too much. And so how do we fix this problem? So there's two main solutions here. The first solution is what we're kind of currently doing, we meaning our company as well as most people in the privacy space, which is educating every user to make them more private. Seth, the one who just spoke, has fantastic resources. A lot of the people who talk today publish fantastic resources. So many resources on the internet, and they're all just fantastic. And all of you can go online and spend a lot of time digging into this yourself, and it's really phenomenal. Solution two is we just make privacy easier for everyone through usable and accessible tools. I do want to mention that these don't have to be mutually exclusive options. I do think that as of right now, things are disproportionate in that we don't have enough of solution 2, and we have a lot of solution 1 to help satisfy the lack of solution 2. I do want to leave a disclaimer because I'm going to talk about development of these projects a lot. I am not a hardcore developer. This is coming from the perspective of mostly an end user, as well as someone who works with these tools every day and recommends these tools and has done consulting with people to get them on these tools. That's my main background. I have very little entry-level development experience, so that is my disclaimer about this. Developers are doing fantastic work, and I'm not trying to harp on the projects too much. So today I want to demonstrate all the projects that achieve usable privacy and how the future of privacy for the average person lies in the hands of those developing the usable solutions. And actually, I want to quickly just cover something. If you look at the wording of solution 1 here, it's very important. We educate every user to make them more private. In solution 2, it's we make privacy easier for everyone. And that's a very important distinction because privacy tools can be applied on a mass scale and is easy for everybody, whereas educating users involves having to individually educate every user. And that's a very big difference in the scheme of things when we're talking about making a widespread impact of trying to make the world more private rather than just individuals. So we're going to go through the pattern. If you want to get a safe ROM, first you have to understand and know that most ROMs, Android ROMs, for those who don't know, are pretty much like Android operating systems. You have alternative operating systems called ROMs. You have to know that your ROM is bad. You have to be educated enough to install a new ROM. You might have to buy a whole new device to get a ROM. And you have to understand that once you're on a ROM, a lot of your apps and the features might not work as you intended them to. These are all things that you just have to know somehow before going into it. If you want to use Telegram securely, a lot of people touched on this today, so I know if you listen to the talks, it's definitely one you've heard a lot, but you have to enable secret chats. So not only do you have to know that, despite looking on Telegram's website where they advertise privacy and security, you have to know to go into someone's profile and enable secret chats for every chat. It's not on by default. You have to convince everyone you're talking to move over to secret chats. If you want to harden Firefox, Firefox advertises itself as a privacy browser. You have to download Firefox. You have to modify settings. You have to have technical experience, time, and you have to massively inconvenience yourself to use a hardened Firefox, and you're still going to deal with site breakage on a day-to-day basis. So these are all just very basic things that kind of outline the patterns of what we have to deal with and what everyone here has to deal with if they want to become more private. And the worst of all is Bitcoin. So I love Matt Odell, and he shares some fantastic resources. So this is not a shot at Matt Odell, because he is one of the people who's really shining a light on the issues of Bitcoin privacy. I'm going to read off the tweet because I know it's small. Tweet saying Bitcoin cannot be stopped to get massive engagement, but the sad reality is that many individuals are going to get burned due to not understanding the nuances of using Bitcoin privately. And he's 100% right. So you have to understand that Bitcoin is not private, and you have to understand how to make it private. And Matt did us the honor of linking his fantastic resources. Here's the problem. I don't know if you can read it. Can you read the total time on that? It's 37 hours. So, and by the way, this is one of the best resources to learn about Bitcoin privacy. So this is not a shot at the resources, because if you do want to use Bitcoin privately, this is where you should go. And also, I think he actually includes one of the courses that we put together in this as well. So like, it's quality information, but it's 37 hours. So if you want to use Bitcoin privately and understand the nuances, that's 37 hours of your time to use Bitcoin privately. 0 for Monero. So right there, we have a project that breaks the pattern. And I was reading a book about simplicity. I love simplicity. I love minimalism. So everything in my life, I try to make it as simple as possible. And I think this fit really well with privacy tools. The way of thinking, which is the most inappropriate of all, is the one which does not see, or worse, simply tolerates unnecessary difficulty. From there, it is only a small step to the degeneration of cults of collusion, which not only condone, but actually cultivate complicatedness, which I think is beautiful, and it really speaks to a lot of the tools that we have to use. So what needs to change for these patterns to be broken, these patterns of inconvenience, these patterns of education requirements, and all the things we talked about? First, privacy must be a default, no matter the user. That's just the bare minimum. If you download a program, it should be private. This especially should apply to all privacy tools, but it currently does not. Bitcoin and other projects neglecting their default privacy for users are consciously choosing to make privacy a privilege. It's now a privilege for you to be private. You have to either pay money to achieve privacy, or you have to pay in time or energy or just anything else to become private. And there should be no cost of being private. It is a human right. It's in the Declaration, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and it's just something that should be a given when you're using especially privacy tools and things advertised as such. And also, going back to my coaching analogy, I'm sure most people here at some point have either been a coach or have been coached by someone. It doesn't have to be sports, but there's a general dynamic of Someone's the coach and someone's the mentor and someone is being taught. And what tends to happen is it should be the tool's job to coach the user, I believe. And what I mean by that is the user shouldn't have to understand how a tool works from the ground up and to coach the tool in order to use the tool properly. The tool should just work for the user. The tool's the one doing the job. The tool is supposed to work for you and not against you, just like a good coach will work for you and not against you either. And this also ties into like, let's stop victim blaming people when people don't take a 37-hour course on using Bitcoin privately. And then like we victim blame them for not doing one thing right because of the tool that failed them. So there's a lot of things that we can dive into there, and I was kind of ranty, but I just wanted to leave that out there. So I wanted to highlight the projects that break the pattern, and Monero is obviously the most important one, and it's why we're all here, because by default, when you use Monero, it gives you privacy for a majority of threat models. That's all you have to do. You just use Monero, send it to someone else, you're good for a majority of threat models. Now, some other examples. You've probably recognized a lot of these from the chats today, but Signal, end-to-end encrypted messaging. Session is kind of an onion routed version. It used to be a fork of Signal, but now they've deviated to make their own encryption. You have the Tor browser bundle, which you've also heard quite a bit about today. LibreWolf takes Firefox and enables things by default to make it more private and secure out of the box. It's worth mentioning, and we'll get to this in the next slide, LibreWolf isn't perfect, but they are trying to make privacy more accessible to people, which I think is a very good goal. Crypting, note-taking. You use it, you're private. Onion share. You want to share files with someone, you use it, you're private. Proton Mail, you use it, you're private. Notice I put safer because email does have problems that Proton Mail doesn't fix all of. Cake Wallet makes Monero even easier. Anyone can use Cake Wallet. I can tell someone go use Cake Wallet and they'll figure it out. And same with Briar. Briar is really unique because it is a very high level anonymity tool that I still think is relatively easy to use. And this is what I was talking about. While these projects achieve a great layer of privacy by default, they're not and can never be perfect. But I say we should still chase for perfection, because why not? So none of these tools were perfect. And if we go back, like we can really start nitpicking on all of these tools if we really wanted to. But the point is they're all really prioritizing the usability of the tool to make privacy as easy as possible for the user. And the final note is sometimes the improved work is done after the fact. So just because a technology as of today is not built in an easy to use way for everybody doesn't mean someone can't improve it. I think LibreWolf is a perfect example because Mozilla has decided to not make Firefox as private as it should be out of the box. And so we have these other projects that take this open source project and make it better. Cake Wallet takes Monero, which is already a privacy by default tool, and they add a usability wrapper on top of it to make it even better for everyone. So people get Monero in an easier, more accessible way. I'm not saying this because they're sponsoring the darn conference, but like it's a great tool. And if you use it, you know it's great. And this ties into another point, which is the largest privacy myth. So we work with clients, pretty much one-on-one clients. We've worked with some public figures. We've worked with some people who are dealing with abusive domestic situations. We've dealt with a lot of different things on like people who need privacy and security. And people are naturally skeptical. I think when you're in this space, you're always naturally skeptical. But here's a really good example that I wanted to throw in here. So one of my clients wanted a weather app. They just moved over to a de-Googled Android device, and they are going on the open source app store, F-Droid. They downloaded this app. It's called Geometric Weather. Gorgeous app. I attached some screenshots. It's truly a beautiful app. You should check it out. One of the best weather apps I've ever seen. So he downloaded this weather app and he messaged me and he went, "What's the catch?" He was just genuinely confused because he's like, is this spyware or what's it doing? Because he didn't believe that a privacy tool that respected him could actually be this good. And I think it speaks to how bad of a job in some places we've done to actually give people the solutions they need to feel like they're on an actual usable device. And I really want to break the myth here that privacy can be beautiful. It can be simple, easy, and enjoyable to use for anybody. You don't have to spend 37 hours going through a course. You don't have to watch any of the things we do. Ideally, it's just by default, and it's doing it in a beautiful and simple manner. I also want to outline that I think Bitcoin versus Monero is a perfect metaphor for this problem across the entire privacy world. Bitcoin to Monero is Telegram to Signal. Same thing. We see this everywhere where you have the tool that, yes, is more accessible, but it requires effort from the user. And then you have the other tool, which is just by default works for the user. So you're going to see this everywhere. And I really want to push people to start noticing these patterns and start prioritizing the tools like Monero, not Bitcoin, for privacy. So I want some actionable takeaways, because I'm all about actionable takeaways for things, because I can just tell you this and you're not going to do anything with it. So the first section is for developers. Again, I am not necessarily a developer, so this is coming from an end user perspective. I want to start by saying we're fortunate enough to even have so many great examples in this presentation, right? Like I listed out phenomenal tools, several of which cater to different threat models, several of which just work by default. So we're very fortunate to even have those tools. And I think that every project, as well as some others that sadly didn't make it in the slides, should be appreciated for all the hard work they've done. With that said, we really need to keep striving and going forward with making these tools as easy, simple, and beautiful to use as possible with privacy by default. And I think that's a very big thing that is just not commonly prioritized. And I'm going to loosely quote Douglas Stuman, who's been doing a great job putting this whole conference on. People won't switch to a platform unless it's 10 times better than the last. While 10 times is quite ambitious, I think we should at least go for the bare minimum of at least matching, right? So people are going from mainstream alternatives, and we're asking them to move to private alternatives. And if they're not at least as good, it's going to be much harder to get them to move over to the private alternatives. So I think there should just be a general goal of actually trying to match, if not beat, the mainstream alternatives when we can. And I know that I'm not a developer, and I'm pretty much telling developers to work even harder than they already do, but I'm just saying it's something to always keep on the back of our minds. And this is where I am better with, and it's the actionable takeaways for end users, which is going to be most people probably listening to this. One, this drives me crazy. Be honest. If you're telling one of your friends to get on the Tor browser, tell them it's slow. Tell them that sites are going to break, and tell them they won't be able to log into their bank account. Because if you tell them that Tor browser is just going to give you privacy and anonymity out of the box, and it's great, you should just use Tor browser, and they start using it, and it's kind of shitty, they're not going to keep using the tool. So we need to set the narrative when we recommend tools to people. We need to tell them, hey, this tool has shortcomings, and we can have an honest discussion about how to make those shortcomings better, and we're not just ignoring the problem. So I think that's a very big problem that's just not talked about enough, that we really need to outline and be comfortable criticizing these projects. One final note on this, you have to remember, people are coming from mainstream options that are some of the most advanced and polished services ever developed in the world. They're coming from that, and we're asking them to move to things that are coming from, not necessarily, it's not bad software by any means, but like much smaller run, losing my train of thought. They're smaller projects, and they're going to be shocked when they see how some of those smaller projects actually work. So I really want to highlight that people are coming from the best software in the world, and we need to make sure we're setting expectations accordingly, and we're being honest with our tools. On that note, we need to embrace the suck. Some things just suck. I think Linux sucks to use for like video production. It's terrible. That's why you see a Mac up here. I think it's fine to embrace the suck, and we need to be more critical of the tools that we use. And I hope that that criticism can be received with open arms as much as possible. And we need to do it in a very constructive way too. But I think we really need to embrace the suck, and we need to just acknowledge that some tools aren't perfect. And the more that we talk about those problems, the better we can address those problems. And also, we need to praise the good things. I think that's really important. I think it's really easy, especially in a very, I think it's a depressing space of the privacy world where everything is just falling apart around you all the time. There's almost never any positive news in the privacy realm for those who haven't noticed. But praising the good things is very important, and it's very useful for developers and people building these tools because they truly put so much work into these tools. And when we praise something like the new Cake Wallet UI is awesome, that is one more thing that they know is like, okay, we're doing the right thing. People see what we're doing, they see that it's more usable, and they see that it's a better tool. So the more that we praise the good things, it's positive affirmation that they're doing the right thing. So I say we should build more unicorn tools for users. I listed out some of the unicorn tools today, and I want to see more unicorn tools out there so that I one day will not have to have a job and everyone just has privacy by default. And I know it's a very optimistic PowerPoint presentation, but I just think these things aren't said enough. And I think that, yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. So I'm open for questions. There's my contact info. And yeah.
Questions? It's very loud. Just a second, I'll run a mic to you.
Can you suggest an alternative to Google Docs?
So my team's laughing right now because we've actually been battling for years now, trying to find a good document collaboration platform. So we were using CryptPad for a good while, CRYPT pad. It's really great for basic things. It was definitely a little buggy for what we were doing, so you might experience some bugs here and there, but I'd say start with CryptPad. It's totally free to try out. It's open source. It has zero knowledge encryption. From CryptPad, we moved to a more advanced workflow with OnlyOffice. OnlyOffice has some cloud suites that you can use, and it just hasn't been great for us. So we're back on the hunt for the same question that you just asked us. But I think CryptPad is a great place to start. We're hoping that Crypty, which is the tool that we outlined earlier, is going to introduce collaboration for teams down the road. So that's what we're banking on. Yeah, sorry. Sometimes it's just not a privacy tool for everything.
Oh wow, it's fancy. No, I just wanted to see that slide you had earlier with a list of...
The unicorn?
Yeah. At least I can take a screenshot of it. Yeah.
Oh, the unicorn?
Oh, no, the list of tools.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I appreciate that, yeah. Oh, where's my cameraman?
This one?
Yeah.
Cool. Just so you know, if you go to our website, techlore.tech, there's a lot more resources. There's also, privacy guides. There's a lot of great resources out there. Seth's blog covers a lot of things. There's so many, yeah. Yeah, these are all great tools.
Are there any tools that you're really excited about that you think aren't unicorns yet, but maybe soon?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm gonna need a minute to sit on that. Okay, I really didn't even want to talk about it because I'm so mixed on it. I think Matrix is not there, but it has potential to one day be there. But they're pushing out a lot of features without focusing on that user experience that I'm talking about. So it's really, for me, it's becoming a very hard tool to recommend. Because on Signal, I could just, as long as you have my phone number, I could just be like, hey, add me on Signal. That's all the information you need. You'll download Signal. Its setup is super easy, and you'll just know to add my phone number. With Matrix, you have to understand home servers. You have to understand, you have to ask for my handle. You have to understand the clients and how you have to pick different clients. So that is one thing that I think could be improved with Matrix. But if it's figured out, Matrix could definitely be on here one day. I didn't put it in here, but Brave, I think, is also really good. Brave is one of my favorite tools for that. It's not perfect out of the box, but it's still really solid. So those are two other things, but I'd have to think on it because I actually spent a lot of time having to even put these up here. So. Yeah, I know Brave is a little unpopular, especially considering it's a Monero conference and they have their whole back cryptocurrency. So I was like, I'm not going to touch that one. We're going to stick with Session instead.
I have another question. So besides Monero, what's the other options out there you think we, as an investor, we should look into it?
Oh, I'm not an investor, so.
Oh, no. Monero has its utility, of course. Well, I use it, whenever I need something that I need it, right? But besides Monero, anything else out there you think is worth to look into it?
Like from an investment perspective?
Oh, no. Well, for utility, just, the privacy,
Well, I think all of these tools are fantastic.
Oh, in terms of cryptos. in terms of
Cryptos.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm pretty much for the most part, I don't see much use case for most other cryptos outside Monero, which I know most people here are gonna love. It's like, why would you use Bitcoin?
And what about Solana? Because I've been to the Solana hacker house just a couple of weeks ago, and seems like a lot of people that's savvy is already. For developers, they're already Web3 developers. They already moved into Solana.
Yeah, and hey, it might be great. I just don't know anything about it.
Got you. Okay. Thank you very much.
But all I'll say is, like, I love Monero, and I haven't found a good coin that gives me a good enough use case to use it outside Monero. And just so you know, like, we get thousands of viewers, and so we attract a lot of people who reach out for things. Pretty much every day we receive something from some new cryptocurrency project, and so we've kind of just blacked most of it out, like mentally, just because we receive so much of that stuff. It's like, use Monero.
You mentioned that you believe in the philosophy of minimalism and you love simplicity. What do you think about digital minimalism?
So I love it. So my team's also laughing because, like, I'll go through phases where I send them screenshots of the number of apps I have on my phone. I think the lowest I ever had was like 8 or something ridiculous like that. I have like 24 accounts. This is all my personal life, by the way. I am very reluctant to say that my whole work life kind of screws up all my plans a little bit. But luckily, everything's done on a device basis, so I can have work devices and personal devices. But yes, digital minimalism is great. If anyone wants resources and wants to dig into that, check out Cal Newport's book on digital minimalism, because it's fantastic. And I think that it actually ties into privacy, and we've made content about this in the past regarding the general relationship between minimalism and privacy, which is the less amount of information you share, the less amount of accounts you have, the less amount of apps and programs you install, generally the better off you're going to be on privacy. Generally the better off you're going to be privacy-wise. So there tends to be a very positive correlation between minimalism and privacy, which is just another reason I love minimalism. But also, the final thing I'll say about this, and this is really off topic, but when we work with clients, people are overwhelmed as hell about privacy, because we're telling them, hey, you got to get to a new email provider, you got to switch to a new operating system, you got to do X, Y, Z, and all these things can take weeks for people. And so when we minimize things first, we tell them, hey, delete all of your accounts first. Start going through your programs and delete everything. It makes the transition to privacy tools so much easier for them, because they actually understand their whole digital and they understand the whole digital portfolio pretty much. They understand all the programs they use, they understand the accounts they have, and it's really easy to make modifications to that. So if you're really trying to take privacy seriously, going minimal makes it so much easier. And that applies to everything else with minimalism too. It allows you to focus on what you need to really focus on.
Thank you. Just a short one. I just wanted to say thank you. You know, me and I'm sure a lot of others listen to your podcast. So, you know, keep that going and keep up the privacy work. So just a simple thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm not sure how we're doing on time.
Yeah, Douglas is gone.
He's hovering. Any last questions before Doug steals the microphone?
Oh, there he is. I think so.
All right, Techlore, you good? Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, thanks.
Greatly appreciate that.